It's raining out in Oregon, so you know what that means. We're doing Subaru stuff. This one's an exciting one for inventors and engineer aspiring people and James Bond fans because I'm going to show you the mounted paintball marker on my 1999 Subaru Legacy. Hey, if you're cool, I'm going to send a couple paintballs right here.
Go for it, man.
Cool,
Yeah.
thank you.
I was like, where is it? I want to see this. Oh my god! Yeah, that's awesome! Dude!
No way. This is the right front fender. If you look a little bit closer, you can see where the barrel is mounted behind the fog light. If you go around the side of the fender to the wheel well, peel it back, you can see where the paintball marker is mounted to the frame with a couple brackets. Here's the CO2. There's a clip that holds about extra 10 rounds. There's where the barrel sticks out from behind the light. And I've got a brake cable right there attached to the trigger that feeds out of the wheel well, behind the wheel, and into the engine bay right there. Here's where it comes out of the engine bay. You can see the cable goes over the intake and feeds into the cab through the accessory hole. Here's where the other end is fed. It comes out right underneath the ashtray. I've got this loop just attached as like a trigger actuator right there. When you pull it, it actuates the trigger inside the bumper. Better look at the trigger mechanism. You can see it feeds underneath my ashtray right there. The pull tab is just a braided cable crimped tight so it snaps on to the end of the cable. I had to remove the center console right there and the parts around the emergency brake and the shifter so I could get better access right here underneath the ashtray. The ashtray has been removed too. You can see there's a brake cable right here. The cable goes back through the radiator. Cable goes back through the radio and through the dash, comes back up here. It's this top black cable right here. This black is for my light bar, and this is for a new thing I haven't shown anybody yet. But the cable goes out through this accessory hole, through the firewall. Accessory hole on the other side of the firewall. Here's where the brake cable is coming out. That's to my light bar, and that's to the new invention right there. It comes up over my intake, and it comes back down and goes into the wheel well. There's a hole on the wheel well right here where your brake line comes from the engine bay and goes towards your wheel. Wheel and wheel well, if you go inside, you can see right here is where my brake line comes through the fender wall, and here's the brake cable running alongside it. The brake line, this plug just came out before I bought the car, so it's just convenient. The cable runs down along the frame of the car, and there's a hole in the frame right here. I just ran a zip tie. I put both ends from the same side and looped it back because the head of the zip tie, when it's zipped, is bigger than the hole, so it's not going to slip through, and it created like an eyelet to hold the cable. Here's where you can see it goes into the back of the fender, and I had to drill a few holes because I didn't quite get it aligned right the first time. And here's where it connects inside. Here you can see I used two metal brackets. One I'll use as an existing hole in the handle of the gun, and I fed a bolt through, and then I bolted that bracket to another one that is bolted to an existing hole in the frame. And this whole thing rotates so you can angle the barrel up and down because it rotates on that left bolt right there. The barrel can only go so high though because of the position of my light in the front. Here's all the materials that you need, basically. Nothing too fancy. Here's the trigger right here. It's just a braided wire from Ace Hardware. It's like a foot of braided wire, crimped with a small loop and a big loop on one end. This is where you trigger. This is the part that snaps on to the end of the brake line. This is like 6 to 8 feet of brake line right here for just a regular mountain bike. It works great because when both the ends are fixed, then the cable slides back and forth and actuates whatever's on the opposite end. So I fixed this end inside the cab, and then the other end right here is fixed onto the gun. So the cable slides between the trigger here and the trigger mechanism in the cab. Here's the other end of the brake line. You can see I had to drill through the handle and then just thread it in. Here's the other side. You can see I had to drill through the other side to route the brake cable through, and then I drilled a hole through the trigger. You can see barely right there. Here's everything put together. You can see the cable housing threaded into the end right here, which is threaded into the handle. Here's the cable going through the hole of the handle and then through the trigger, and just a regular cable stop from my BMX bike to stop the cable from being pulled through. So when you pull the cable, it actuates the trigger right there. It's the paintball gun. It's just a regular JT beginner paintball gun, semi-automatic. When you take the shell off the paintball gun, it comes with a handle right here. When you take the plastic shell off, you can see the handle has these two holes where screws mounted the shell on. And I used the top hole, I ran a bolt through it to just a short 90-degree bracket, which goes to another 90-degree bracket, the short and a long side. This part right here, you can see it has a bolt through. This connects to the frame of the vehicle, so it connects this way to the frame, and it can adjust back and forth if it rotates on that back bolt. You can aim it up or down depending on the angle you want to shoot. This is the CO2 line where the propellant connects to the gun. A long time ago, I just cut this off the handle because I realized that with it disconnected, it's much more flexible and you can hold the propellant, anywhere you want, or you could connect it to another line somehow. Here's how the propellant was connected. It's just a small tank connected with an adjustable band strap right here. Here's a flat strap for some carpentry for trellises, I believe, and I bent it at a right angle so when this band is tightened, it won't slip off the end. On this top hole right here of the band, I threaded another bolt to the frame of the vehicle so it held the propellant at this angle inside the fender and out of the way. Because of the way the gun was attached to the fender, imagine that here's the inside of the fender where the gun is mounted to the frame. The hopper right here doesn't have enough space to fit inside, so I had to make this little piece that just slides on right here. That way it fits inside the fender wall, and then you can just load it up right here. It holds about 10 different shots, and it'll feed it inside just gravity fed. The barrel is just the regular thread-on barrel that came with the gun. I had to cut like 8 inches off so that it would stay concealed in the bumper. And this way I was also able to angle it upward a little bit because the light bracket was right here. The only modification I had to do was I ran a little bit of nail polish inside because the barrel was big enough that the paintballs would just slip through. So this way they can rest, but the propulsion is enough that it would just pop it through. So everything functions pretty well. Obviously there are some improvements that could be done, but it's just a rough draft, it's a prototype. And the first time you do something, it's never perfect. So for now, I'm probably going to remove it. I don't really need it. I'd never use it. It was just an idea. And if I decide to put it back on, it'll probably have some updated designs. But I hope you guys enjoy.